Well, from the moment that Durham police said they were investigating Keir Starmer, this moment felt inevitable, given everything that Keir Starmer had said on the record, trying to pin Boris Johnson down and say that he should go because of fixed penalty notices. He knew, Keir Starmer, that any word he said on any policy, not just on Partygate, on cost of living, on anything, would not be heard above the cries of hypocrisy. So it felt like he was always going to have to do this, and he cannot know at the moment whether he has effectively fired a bullet that will knock the Prime Minister off his perch because of pressure from Tory MPs, and Keir Starmer will not be given a fixed penalty notice, or it could be a bullet that goes through both of them, or just through Keir Starmer. He does not know. What this does, though, is put incredible pressure on Durham police. Quite a few years ago, Tony Blair was under investigation for cash for honours, and he pointedly made it known, very publicly known, that if the police, the Met then, came to him and said they were going to question him under caution, he would resign. Well, we know from senior sources in the police that that actually made the police fold. Durham police are now under enormous pressure. They know that the future of one political leader hangs in the balance, but Keir Starmer just can't know which way they'll go.
Will you resign if you're fined by Durham police? Will you be resigning?
Diving into taxis, avoiding the cameras.
Mr. Starmer, will you resign, sir?
Keir Starmer realised it couldn't carry on like this.
1, 2, 3, 4.
At a miniature press conference, the microphone picked up the leader's backstage nerves as he gambled his entire career on what the police will do next.
Are you going in first? Yeah. Before me? Am I following now? Afternoon. Ever since the first COVID lockdown, I've always followed the rules. But if the police decide to issue me with a fixed penalty notice, I would, of course, do the right thing and step down.
The statement came 3 days after Durham police said they were investigating this event for a potential breach of COVID laws, take-out curry and beer a year ago with fellow Labour campaigners.
Today I urge them once again, remove the Prime Minister from office.
Keir Starmer decided his own demands for Boris Johnson to stand down after he was fined for breaching COVID laws meant he had no choice but to promise he would go if he was fined.
This is a matter of principle and honour for me. It's about who I am, what I stand for. And I stand for honour and integrity, on the belief that politics is a force for good and we shouldn't all be dragged down by this cynical belief that all politicians are the same. And I'm here to make it clear that I am not the same.
British food and drink is the best in the world.
Boris Johnson visited stalls promoting British businesses set up in Downing Street today. Keir Starmer insisted his campaign break with party colleagues a year ago bore no relation to the organised social gatherings in Downing Street during lockdown. But he couldn't rule out the police seeing it differently.
For me, this is an in-principle position. No rules are broken. I'm absolutely clear about that. But in the event that I'm wrong about that and I get a fixed penalty notice, I will do the right thing and step down.
Do you think I'm a fanatical chutney maker?
Labour strategists are hoping their leader's words today will pile pressure on Tory MPs to prize Boris Johnson from office if he tries to stay put, despite one fine already and more potentially on the way.
Thank you all very much.
Keir Starmer, quick question.
One shadow cabinet colleague said it's the biggest risk he's ever taken.
If you don't get a fixed penalty notice, but you are found that there was a breach, what happens then? Do you still resign, or does it have to be a fixed penalty?
The penalty for a COVID breach is a fixed penalty notice. That's a matter of law, and I've set out what the position is in relation to that. Thank you very much.
Keir Starmer's deputy, Angela Rayner, announced she would also resign if fined for the campaign gathering that happened the night before this campaign trip to Hartlepool last year.
Mr Starmer, is this gamble going to pay off?
2 years after the last leadership race, Labour could be tipped into another one. All rests on a team of police officers who are expected to spend several weeks sifting the evidence.
Well, Labour's Emily Thornberry, Shadow Attorney General for England and Wales, joins us now from Westminster. Now, you've been out tonight saying that Durham police have been under a lot of pressure from the Conservative Party and Conservative supporting newspapers. Do you trust them to get this right?
Durham police need to make a decision about this, and of course they will look at the evidence, and when they look at the evidence they will see that Keir did nothing wrong. Keir ate a meal whilst at work, and nobody in Britain has been prosecuted for eating a meal at work. But I think that what has become clear today is that there is an obvious dividing line between a principled, decent man who is prepared as a matter of honour to say that if he is fined by Durham police that he will resign, and our Prime Minister who has, we know, number 10 Downing Street, there was not an address that didn't have more parties than number 10 Downing Street, and we have known for a long time that there was systematic rule breaking going on at number 10 with invitations going out in advance.
So you do trust them?
With bottles coming in. Oh, I mean, look, they need to look at the evidence, and the evidence is clear that Keir Starmer was at work and he had something to eat. I mean, you know, I've just seen the photograph and it's quite clear that he's eating on the run. He's in the kitchen and he's having something to eat. And, you know, people are trying to make a big thing about an ops note.
But it's a bit bizarre to say you'll just resign if they send you a fixed penalty notice when you're insistent that you didn't break the law. If you insist that you didn't break the law, why wouldn't you appeal? Wouldn't you go to court and challenge the fixed penalty?
It's really important that we don't allow the smear to continue. We need to stand up and we need to say, no, we're not like you.
Yeah, but if you think it's wrong, that's a different question. I'm asking you about the fixed penalty.
No. What's wrong is to try to drag all politicians down and to say that we're all the same, and we're not.
Yeah, no, that's a different question. I'm asking you about the process by which Keir Starmer just says, OK, if they send me a fixed penalty, I'll quit. It just seems a bizarre amount of power over the future of this country to give to a handful of officers in Durham.
You see, I have to say, I mean, I've been on the media for the last couple of days, and the question, I think, we were counting it. I think I was asked like 8 or 9 times, you know, if Keir Starmer gets a penalty notice, will he resign? And if not, why not? And Keir has now decided that he should answer that question so that everybody knows what the situation is.
Is that why it
and
took
then
the weekend?
And then you move the goalposts again. You know, I mean, really.
Well, yeah, I mean, I will ask different questions on different days. Yeah, that's my right.
Right.
So, I mean, is that why this took the weekend? Because you all realised that you couldn't sustain this line of, oh, we're not going to say anything?
No,
because
I think that,
you know, because if it was a matter of principle, why didn't the principle occur to him on Friday?
Well, I mean, I think that, you know, listen, what happened over the weekend was that Keir spoke to people in the shadow cabinet and spoke to those close to him and asked them their views. And, you know, he was, to be honest, fairly clear about what he wanted to do, but he needed to make sure that we all knew what he was thinking, and he wanted to have our comments on it.
Were you telling him not to say this? Were there people saying, no, you mustn't quit?
I'm not going to say. I probably shouldn't have even told you I had a private conversation with the leader of the opposition, but I had a private conversation. It was private, and I'm not going to go into the details.
Right, but I mean, they could be gone in a week. Both, you know, the leader and the deputy leader of the Labour Party could have to resign within, you know, any day. So what happens then?
Well, they're not.
Who becomes the leader?
They're not going to be gone because they haven't done anything wrong. And they're not going to get fined, and they're not going to need to resign.
Well, it's a gamble. You don't know that. This is in the hands of some police, which is why I'm saying it's a bizarre thing to do, to put all that power without saying you'll ever challenge it if you think they've got it wrong. But that aside, would you run? Would you step into the breach if there was suddenly a gap at the leadership of the party?
What we would need to do, it would need to be, it's a matter for the National Executive Committee what we would do next. But, you know, let's not get into, you're building a hypothetical on a hypothetical.
Well, because he said I will quit. Once he says I will quit, we're all going to talk about what happens if you have to quit, which is there'll have to be a new leader of the Labour Party. And there'll be a leadership contest, and you ran last time. Would you run again?
We're proceeding confidently that Keir is going to remain leader, that Angela will be his deputy, and that Keir will be the next Prime Minister, because the country is crying out for somebody straightforward and honest.
Do you think it was a mistake in retrospect to demand the resignation of the Prime Minister so soon? Because, I mean, you know, you made this sort of a point of principle rather than sort of the facts of whether you break the law or not.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Look, think of it this way, right? there was a kind of industrial scale breaking of the rules. We expected everybody to make sacrifices, and we made sacrifices ourselves. This was a collective trauma. It was a collective endeavour to get through this pandemic. And yet those making the rules at the very top, at number 10 Downing Street, the address that broke the rules more than any other, overseen by this Prime Minister. And of course it was, and he lied about it. And I think that actually is more important perhaps than anything else. Having realised, he then came into Parliament and he lied to us. He thought about it, he worked out what the best line was, and he lied about it.
Emily
He lied to Parliament. That's why he should have resigned.
Thank you very much for joining us.
No problem.